Hey, my loves. In our August series for Event Tea at the Picnic Yard, we're discussing the language and principles of design and styling for aesthetics. And you know what? I decided that today for our tablescaping or table setting tutorial, I'm going to be applying this principle so that when you listen to Event Tea at the Picnic Yard, you can come and watch this video to understand how it applies. And when you're setting your tables, you know the rules to follow to get an exquisite and stylish tablescape. And remember, get the full tea on everything intimate event hosting, styling, decor, dining, and all the entire shebang. Go to our YouTube channel. I put in so much effort to put that together, so subscribe. Okay, let's go. While we're discussing the things that makes a setup stunning as opposed to others that look flat and boring, we talked about what creates visual interest. So we discussed contrast, texture, pattern, and focal points, which also would go as accent. So we're going to see how all of these things apply when it comes to table setting. So let's start with texture, just in no context, or texture and contrast. Now, when we spoke about contrast, we talked about two things that are opposites, but when you put them side to side, they make each other shine. Now, for example, this fabric now is smooth to look and this has texture. So the contrast between these two textures is making each of them, the smoothness of this to be more outstanding and the rough or wrinkly texture of this one to be more visible. So that is what contrast does. It gives a level of visual interest that allows you to see the difference between two things that are happening at the same time while they're allowing each other shine. So the next we have is pattern. So when we talk about pattern, we're talking about repetition. So it could be a motif, it could be a floral arrangement, it could be something that happens in multiple times in a setup that creates like a continuity and visual cohesion in your setup. So now we're creating a pattern here. You can see that all our flower vases, let me bring in the third one. Vases we're using here, we're using this blue China teapots with this blue motifs. You can see with all of them having similar patterns and similar colors, it kind of brings the whole thing together and creates a level of cohesion. So a pattern does not mean that everything has to be identical, but it has to be similar enough for you to be able to group them together. On pattern, you get to understand that one thing what pattern does for your styling is that it creates continuity. It is what tells the story, the visual story of your theme. So what is the one thing you keep seeing in this place that tells you that, oh, this is the particular theme we're working for? You're seeing the patterns on the prints on the vases and the dessert stand. You're seeing the colors that continue over and over again, the light blue, the darker shade of blue, and the yellow. You see that a pattern has been recreated over and over again. You can find yellow in the lemons in the vase. You can find the blues on the vases and even in the flowers. So that is a pattern that is now creating a visual interest that makes you look and say, okay, this is what we're trying to achieve. So the next concept that we also discussed is dimension. So when we talk about dimension, it's trying to arrange things in such a way that it does not look flat. So for example, if you look at this layout so far, you'll see that everything on this table is not of the same height. So that's another thing that creates visual interest. So you have the things that are higher, and then followed by something that is lower, and then there's a rise and there's a fall, there's a rise, there's a fall, and so goes it. If you arrange all the short things on one side and all the long things on one side, the two sides of your table are not going to be even, and they're not going to look the same. They're not going to look equal. But by the time you're able to create a dimension, it gives texture to your setup and not make everything look flat. So the next concept we discussed is the concept of layering. Although our previous content has also shown, like, we did a demonstration on how to layer your setup. But yeah, layering is arranging things or the elements of your decor in such a way that allows contrast to show, basically. So you use layering to achieve contrast. With each element, everything that we're putting on this table, they are being put intentionally in such a way that one allows the other to show and to shine. So the white plate against the gold rimmed charger plate allows the gold details on the charger plate to show. And then because the plate is white, even if this tablecloth is a light color, the white brings in, like, works well with the whites that are on the details of the dessert stand and the vases. Next thing we discussed is focal point or accent. An accent may be a piece or a color or something that you add that is strikingly different from almost everything in the decor, but it kind of ties it all together. For example, now you see that the flowers on this table, the two that are of even size, but this one that is in the middle, we're using it as our focal point. That is why you see that both in choice of color, the choice of flower, it is visually more interesting. So this is like the focal point of the decor. This is the center of the decor. That's why it's our centerpiece. And then another thing again that ties together this entire setup is the choice of color. So this cobalt blue color, an accent color, when you consider the palettes that we have been working with, you see that we have more of this baby blue featuring here with the flowers, with the runner. We have a lot of yellow, but the one color that stands out in such a way that creates a lot of contrast and makes this setup visually interesting is this blue. So now that you know the different principles that you can apply, I implore you to start making exquisite and more stunning table setup. Okay, so this is our table set and ready for dining. So with now that you have learned the few principles or the design language or principles of aesthetics, you now know what to do to design a nice and style a beautiful table. But it doesn't end there. If you actually want to design and style a table like a pro, not just this particular setup, and learn more and all that it takes to host like a pro, and be the host with the most, you have to sign up for our Art of Hosting Masterclass, where you learn tablescape, different kinds of tablescape, different kind of themes, and also learn how to style food for grace tables, for buffet, and all of that stuff. So remember, click the link in the bio to sign up on the wait list so that when all the information and details for the masterclass and all the discounts that are available for the wait list people, you're going to be there amongst the chosen ones. So see you in the wait list. Thank you. And also remember, all of these props are available to rent at the picnic yard, okay? If you want to rent this setup, it's available. Everything on this table is available to rent. So get into my DM to book it.